Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Ella. I'm a rising sophomore at Princeton, and I use this channel to create college and lifestyle content. And since I just finished my freshman year at Princeton, I thought it would be fun to do a little recap. Plus, I wanted to answer some of your guys' questions, so welcome to the Q&A. I'm going to split this video up into a few sections, and I'll put the timestamps here so you can skip to whichever section you're most interested in. But what I'm trying to cover in this video are first Princeton Academics, then the Princeton social life, then my plan for Princeton, and then finally I'll do a kind of photography and videography section where I talk about my photos and how I make YouTube videos and all that fun stuff. So starting off with Princeton Academics, I thought I would just first talk about the academic rigor. There were a few questions about how hard is Princeton and what is it really like. I don't really know, to be honest, because it was all online this semester, and I feel like I don't really have a good idea yet of what the expectations are in a normal year. But what I do know after talking to some upperclassmen is that the expectations for online learning this semester were actually pretty similar to what they're like in a normal year, based on the amount of work and what you're required to know for tests and stuff. There were a few things that they went easy on us with, but it was pretty rare. So overall, I would say that because we are on the semester system and we only have 2 sections of learning throughout the year and 4 classes are the, what's required. You can take 5 if you're, BSc, but I took 4 both semesters. It is a very challenging system, but it's doable, and I felt like it was the right amount of time to really learn the subject, and I really liked the way that it was structured. I think I would really struggle on like a quarter system if we had 3 sections of learning. I like that there's only 2. I just really like the academic system at Princeton. I do think it's challenging. I mean, it's a very challenging school, but I felt like it was structured in a way that they want you to succeed, and that felt good. And kind of in that same vein, there were a lot of questions about how I stay motivated. And to be honest, it was really hard this semester because everything was online. And when I was in Hawaii for the first semester, I just wanted to go to the beach. And when I was on campus in the second semester, during the second semester, I was in my room alone a lot because I had it single. And as a result of that, I ended up studying a lot with my best friend Olivia because we could kind of keep each other accountable. We'd study in each other's rooms, we'd go to the library together. But staying motivated has been something I've never really struggled with that much until this year. Just being honest, I always loved school and everything, but this year it was kind of hard. There were some times when it was all I want to do is take a 6-hour nap and not think about this right now. But it really helped that I love my classes and the professors were really engaged in the learning, even in a Zoom environment, especially my neuro class. It was just so oh my god, they really did the most to make it work for Zoom. But in terms of how I stay motivated, planning. I plan like a crazy person. I use Notion, I use my Apple Calendar, I use my Google Calendar. I just use every resource that I can to really set myself up for success, because then if I'm okay, I really don't want to work today, I can work with that. I'm not procrastinating my stuff, and I think that's really just how I stay sane, because the workload is really intense, and I feel like if I wasn't planning, I would just not be succeeding in the environment. And even with planning, it's really hard, so especially in a Zoom environment. So I think that just planning and setting yourself up, be kind to yourself, give yourself the space to have some rest time, have some friend time, go eat a meal and not think about school, not study when you're eating, I did that in the mornings, but for lunch and dinner, I just made sure I wasn't studying when I was eating, and just finding the space to really have alone time and have study time and not let those things kind of mingle, because you know what I mean, having self-care, having study time, keeping it separate. So on kind of a similar note to studying, I got a lot of questions about this thing, the iPad. And a lot of people were asking, is it worth it? What do you recommend for college? And I think that this is literally the best tool that exists for college. I think that my freshman class, a lot of people use these because we were in a Zoom environment. So when we were thinking about buying school supplies, we were like, oh, we should just get an iPad, because then we can do our exams and our P-sets and note-taking, everything on this. But there are so many more benefits to this than I ever thought possible. You can import your textbooks. So I don't buy textbooks anymore. I just have them on here, the PDFs, and they're always cheaper or free. And then you can import all your exams and P-sets, everything, and write straight on them and then export them. So you don't have to use paper. It's just really simple and clean. And whenever I go to the library, I just bring this and my computer, and that's all I need, because everything is on here. and it keeps my handwriting neat. It's really easy to stay organized with all my stuff. Like in Notability, I'm able to easily organize all my work. I'm also able to import my lecture slides during like before a lecture. I can import the slides and then take notes on them, and then after I can like refine my notes again. There's so many like great resources with this, and it's just so much easier to stay organized than like a notebook. You know, we're having a different notebook for every class. And I've always been like a stationary person. Like I really loved having paper and writing with a pen, and I still have that for some things, but this is just unbeatable. Like there's no method that's more efficient than this, I feel like. Especially because if you have a Mac, it's really easy to send things back and forth with AirDrop, and they kind of work cohesively. Plus with the new iOS 15 that I was just looking at, like you're gonna be able to have this like a dual monitor with your computer. Like seriously, so great. And in case you're wondering, I have the iPad Air 4th generation. So it's a little cheaper and lighter than the iPad Pro. And I only really use it for school and like sometimes like drawing and stuff, but I didn't need the like huge iPad Pro powerhouse because I invested the like memory and power into my computer instead. And this is just kind of like my notebook basically. I hope that answers your question. And then on a different note, I also wanted to talk about financial aid at Princeton because there were a few questions about that. There were some questions about Questbridge and some questions about how the financial aid works for all the students at Princeton, and it's a really great system. I personally did Questbridge, so I applied. It's kind of like an external scholarship resource. I applied to Questbridge, and then I ended up applying to Princeton through Questbridge, like instead of the Common App, if that makes sense. And Questbridge kind of like puts this stamp on your application, metaphorically speaking, that says this student needs top financial aid. It's kind of like having another stamp of approval that you're like a driven and financially in need student. And that really helped me, and I ended up getting a full ride to Princeton. Everything has been covered, and that's like so incredible that I don't have to worry about debt. Incredible. I still can't believe it. And the other great thing about Questbridge is it really fosters a community. So there's a lot of people at Princeton that are Questbridge. And if you don't want it to be part of your identity, that's okay too. Just like if you're a full ride student, you don't need to make that a part of your identity at all. But you know, if you want people that understand what it's like to be at an Ivy with full aid, there are people there, and it is an experience to be at an Ivy with full aid. So you know, it's nice to have that community. And then for people that aren't Questbridge, don't panic if you didn't apply, or if you don't want to, or you don't qualify for some reason, because Princeton has need blind applications. So when they read your application and they accept you, they're looking at your financial aid application separate of your regular application. You don't have to worry about your financial aid affecting your acceptance, and you also don't have to worry about not getting the aid you need, because they are really good about looking at your finances in a holistic view and being like, this kid needs this much aid. And if you get the aid and you're not happy with it, you can talk to them and they'll totally work with you. So I've had like nothing but great experiences with the Princeton financial aid. Like they're awesome. So if you're thinking about applying and you're concerned about that, I would just apply, because it's really like likely that you're gonna be surprised or like totally pleased with your financial aid package. And just a little bit about Questbridge as well, because I just want to throw that in here in case anyone's interested. You can apply during your junior year to their like prep scholars program, but you can also apply during your senior year, which is what I did. You apply to be one of their scholars, and then once you get accepted, you can do their match program, which means you can rank up to 12 of their college partners. And if you get in, you are guaranteed a full ride in this like incredible package to the school you get into. And if it's a binding school, you have to go. And if it's a non-binding school, which is like Stanford, Yale, Princeton, a few others I think, but I would check on that just to make sure, because I know they've changed it recently. But anyway, if you get in, you can go with the match program, but then you can also apply regular decision through Questbridge, which is what I did, and that's when I got into Princeton. So overall, Questbridge is just a really great program, not only just to create a community and to meet people and to have extra help on your applications and everything, but also just because it gives you this like unique entrance into the college apps and into being recognized by an admissions officer. And it's a really unique program, and I recommend looking at it even if you're not sure that you qualify financially. They look at your situation holistically as well. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to Princeton's social life, which I also feel like I'm going to start the same way as the last section, which is I don't really know what it's like in full because of COVID. So first semester, obviously it was a little bit rough because I wasn't on campus. I wasn't even really in the continental US. I was in Hawaii, so it was very different. And I luckily had my best friend Olivia. We met before We met in the summer, so we were able to communicate, and I had my other friend Diego. We had 3 classes together, which is pretty rare. I felt lucky that I had some like really strong friends that I could talk to, but I definitely didn't like know that many people in my class. I still felt like I hadn't really experienced the social life at all. And then I got there in the spring and I definitely got to meet more people, and it was so wonderful. There was a lot of like COVID friendly things like walks and, you know, get meals with people, and it was great to get to know people that way. I feel like when I started making friends at Princeton, I realized that these were people that I wanted to be friends with forever, like lifelong friends, and that feels so good to like feel that way when you just meet somebody. But anyway, I also feel like the social life was really challenging this semester. You know, I'm a pretty extroverted person. I have no like social anxiety about just like going up to someone and saying, hi, do you want to get a meal, you know? But there are a lot of people that aren't comfortable with that, and there are a lot of people that are introverted. I think that this COVID really like was hard, and it was hard for me like as an extroverted person. Princeton had a lot of restrictions around COVID, like we had to wear masks all the time, we had to social distance, we just had to be really careful. I'd say last year was pretty good. Next year's gonna be so much better. And I'm so excited to see what it's like in a normal year. Like next year when we go, and like there's parties and there's like normal sporting events and like normal stuff happening. So now I'm gonna transition into my plan for Princeton. A few people have asked about what I'm majoring in and what that means and what my plans are. So I am majoring in neuroscience. I actually came to Princeton planning to major in physics. That's what I had done a lot of in high school. I tutored it at a JC. I'd like really gotten into it. I'd taken some college classes in physics and I was like pretty set on it. Like I thought I wanted to be an astronaut. I was like, this is like what I want to do. And then I got to Princeton and I took a physics class and I really didn't like it. And there are a few reasons for that. I felt like the physics program there weren't as many women as I wanted there to be, and as much as I wish that I could be one of those women that's like, you know, pioneering and like going for it, I had a hard time in the classes, and I had a hard time imagining my life in physics and feeling like I was gonna be one of the only women in like offices that I worked at and stuff like that. Like I just kind of had this like, well, my whole life is going to be like this. It's not just this class. And so I decided to stay in science, but to change to neuroscience, which is much more, there's more women, there's more inclusiveness. And I also think, like, I want to say too, like as a disclaimer, I don't really think it's Princeton's fault, you know? I think part of it is exactly what I just said. Like when people take physics and they realize that it's dominated by white men, they don't want to do it anymore. And then it just continues to be dominated by white men. And so I want to just make that clear, that I'm not like Princeton's physics program is terrible, because it's one of the best in the country, and it was an incredible class. It was kind of representative of the career I was going to have, that class, and I was like, I don't think this is what I want. I definitely want to stay in science. And at the same time, I was also realizing that I want to do pre-med, and pre-med physics is kind of unheard of at Princeton. It's like impossible. I mean, it's not impossible, but like I was not down to do that. And so I decided to switch to neuro, and now I am planning to concentrate in neuroscience, but I won't actually declare until the end of my sophomore year. So who knows what'll happen, but I'm really loving neuro. I've been reading a lot of neuro books lately. I really love my neuro class. It's also really cool because there's a lot of physics and chem and bio in neuro. And psychology. It just kind of like combines all the things that I love. I found that it still has that kind of like shocking like change in worldview when you learn something new about it, the same way that physics, the same thing that attracted me about physics, but it's not physics, and it's just, I'm really excited about it. So a couple people asked about like what it means to study neuroscience, like what am I going to do with that if I don't do pre-med? And with a neuroscience degree, I think people can do a lot of different things. One thing I've learned at school is that a lot of people don't end up using their degrees for what they thought, and really college is just the time to study what you want. And that's why I chose neuro, because it's just exactly what I want to be learning about. I'm studying neuro because I want to. That's the bottom line. But it's also helpful because it's kind of medical in a lot of ways, and I'll get to do some kind of medical related research, and then when I apply to med school I'll already have some background in that, rather than like you can do English in pre-med or history in pre-med, but it's hard because there's very little overlap and you're kind of it's like double majoring, right? So I'm doing the pre-med classes and the neuro classes, and a lot of them overlap and they have like similar ideas. But the pre-med path at Princeton is pretty tricky. It's hard. It's just, you know, the same requirements that you have at any school. So if you're pre-med, you know, like it's a lot of work. It's draining. It tests your limits. And the other thing is that like most programs, most jobs, most situations don't really care about college GPA. Like they just don't. Like, they care about your resume and they care about your, you know, accomplishments and what your interests and your demonstration of how, you know, qualified you are for a job, but they don't really care about your GPA. But med school really cares about your GPA. So it's hard because there are a lot of classes that, you know, maybe I would take, but I'm like, oh God, is it worth it? Like, my GPA might tank if I take that class. So it's something to consider if you're thinking about pre-med, you're not sure, like, you have to be really sure that you want to do it, or you can at least start the path and see, but it's a lot of pressure on your GPA and your performance in your classes. So, but at the same time, like, I know I really, really want to be a doctor. That it's fun because a lot of the pre-med classes kind of give you a glimpse at that. So it's totally worth it if you're interested, but if you're not, you'll find out quickly. You know, it's a good test of your interests. And I got a couple questions about my aspirations, like what I want to do in my future. So obviously I want to be a doctor. I've been thinking a lot about surgery because I really love to work with my hands and with patients. And I love the idea of getting to kind of like reconstruct things and just use my hands and my knowledge and like really like put it to use every single day, and that everybody is different and that you have to, you know, apply your knowledge, but also like you have to be creative. That sounds amazing to me. So obviously I'm studying neuro, so maybe neurosurgery or heart surgery, or neonatal. I'm also really interested in working with kids. I really just, everything sounds cool to me. Like, I'm so excited to be a resident someday and just get to like try everything, to learn about it more in med school. I will keep you updated on that. I'm not sure which field of medicine I'll be going into, but I'm pretty certain about the pre-med doctor track. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about something completely different, which is videography and photography. I got a couple questions about which camera I use and the gear and all that stuff. So for my camera, I use the Sony A7 Mark III, which is a mirrorless camera. If you're unfamiliar with mirrorless, it's a different kind of camera build. So when you're looking through the viewfinder, you're actually seeing what the image is gonna look like. You have a lot more like control over the image because it's all digital. And I really like that. It helps me because I shoot a lot of natural light photography, and so, you know, when I take photos that are like backlit with sun, I can look through the viewfinder and know what it's going to look like rather than taking the photo and having to look at the screen. Also has interchangeable lenses. I use a lot of Sigma and Sony lenses. My favorite lens right now is my Sigma 35mm f1.4. It's a pretty wide angle lens. Our eye sees at 50 millimeters around there, so a 35 is a little bit wider, so it gives like bodies like a long look, and it gives like a lot of, you know, when I'm taking portraits, it'll have like a lot of information on the side, so I can crop it down, but I can also keep it big. And I love it for portraits and landscapes and everything. But it is a prime lens, so I can't zoom. I have it stuck at 35 millimeters. But it just has a beautiful look, and the f1.4 means that the background can be really blurry if I want, so I can have like very shallow depth of field, so I can focus on some like one specific thing. Like if I focus right now on my eyeball, then my nose would be blurred and my hair would be blurred, but my eyes would be in focus, if that makes sense. I can make it like super focused on one thing. Anyway, and then for the rest of my gear, I use the douchebag backpack. And I love it because it's really light without my stuff in it, so I never feel like I'm like actually carrying my backpack around because it's like so light and I just put my stuff in it, so I'm actually really just carrying my stuff. And it's great because when I have like a long shoot or something, I don't even notice it on my back, and it's super easy to access everything, and it's great. And then for my vlogging camera, I use the Canon G7X Mark II, I think, and it has an 8.8 to 36.8 f1.8 to 2.8. Sorry, I'm looking at my lens. Okay, you can't change the lens, but you can zoom, and you have a lot of control, and it's just so great for filming. I mean, like, it's like super easy to carry around, and great for vlogging, everything. The other thing about it is it's super small, so I can keep it in my pocket. So I love bringing it like on trips to like do anything because it takes really great photos as well, and it's really small. And my big camera is not small, obviously, and so it's not super fun to like bring on like, you know, to hang out with friends because it's so big. But this is perfect, and when it's like an Instagram photo or something, it's hard to tell the difference between the qualities. So if you're looking for like a small easy camera, I really recommend the Canon G7X. And if you're looking for like a fancy, like I want to be a photographer camera, I recommend the Sony A7 Mark III. Or I recommend getting a Canon. I love the 5D Mark IV. Those are really wonderful cameras. They're DSLR full frame. Yeah, and if you have any questions about like cameras, I can also make a video just about that. Okay, so then I got some question about software. So what do I use to edit my photos? How do I keep my photos consistent on my Instagram? And how do I edit my videos? So I use Adobe for everything. I use Photoshop, Lightroom, and Premiere Pro. So I use Premiere Pro to edit my videos. I use Lightroom, CC, and Classic to edit my Instagram photos. And I have presets that I use. If you're not familiar with what a preset is, it's basically like a fancy filter, like a VSCO filter, but like a little bit fancier and more adjustable and can be put on raw photos. It's more manipulating the picture quality rather than putting something on top of the picture, if that makes sense. And I really tried to stay consistent with my presets, because even if the photos have different colors and different, you know, light qualities, like if some like have a lot of dark in them, some have a lot of light in them, if you use the same presets, it really creates like a consistency within your feed. And it like stresses me out if there's like inconsistency, so I like just using the same preset. I'm thinking about selling my presets on my photography website. If that's something you're interested in, let me know and I can start selling them. But it's a super easy way to keep your photos consistent and just create like a cohesive nature to your Instagram. But yeah, if you're looking to start editing your photos with a more professional touch, I really recommend getting Lightroom. There's a cloud-based version called Lightroom CC, which you can get for your iPhone. And you can still use presets and you can still do a lot of manipulation on your phone, and it's a great way to start learning about that, especially because you can start making your own presets, which is what I started making them myself, and then I was able to just use them for every photo that I did. But I think that is all for today. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to make another one of these. It was super fun to film, so feel free to leave more questions below or any comments you have, and I can also just reply to your questions in the comment section. But thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. I hope the timestamps were helpful too. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.